was a force in nature, right from the start, right from birth. He had 2 speeds, and it was full on or passed out sleeping. He always, and now that we've had the unfortunate chance to reflect, we're really astonished how much he accomplished in such a young life. And so so fast that his great-grandparents always called him Roadrunner, because he just couldn't stay still, and he always wanted to do as much as he could. And now that we think about it, boy, he did an awful lot in a short amount of time. And sometimes you have to wonder, did he know that he just had to get it all in? And quite the individual. He could go into any room and sit down and have an actual personal conversation with someone he didn't know. And they could be 55 or they could be 15. They could be 5. And he had no problem with connecting to each one. And it was the most legitimate and authentic personality I think I will ever have met in my life.
Peyton was our youngest son. He loved the outdoors. He loved people. He loved history. Like Stacy said, if there was one fault, it was that he wanted to do so much. He was active in everything, very spiritual, but his real love was the fire service. And in Lafargeville, you can't join the fire department until you're 18. So on his 18th birthday, he signed the paperwork and became a Lafargeville volunteer firefighter. And then he went off to college in Siena College, a Franciscan college in the Albany area. And we get a call from him down there, and instead of doing college stuff, he joined the Shaker Road, Loudonville fire department while he was in college. So if he wasn't going to class, if he wasn't studying, he was an RA. What did he do? He drove to the firehouse and he would bunk in there. He would train there at Shaker Road, so much so that back home, when they found out he had all the training, at the age of 20, they made him the second assistant chief because he had completed so much training in Albany. He was in college. He could have graduated, but being Peyton, he was taking more courses to get another degree. He could have graduated after 3 semesters, but he finished his 3.5, and that's when he was offered the job with the Watertown Fire Department. And he joined them, and the fire department was really one of his love. He just go, go, go. And even when he was the Watertown Fire Department, he would come home from the academy, and when the tones went off, he was only home for 48 hours, but he would still go. He was very dedicated. He had a lot of integrity. He was a good boy, good man.
Well, you have a great example of, was it the weekend before, that he was, had been at the academy all week and came home and got a call about a little boy whose birthday, they couldn't have a birthday party because of COVID. And in our area.
He gets home Friday night and he goes over to his fiance's house, and he calls me and he says, "Hey Dad, there's a little 4-year-old boy in town. It's his birthday. He's upset. It's during COVID. There's no birthday parties, but we want to do a fire parade for him. Do you want to, meet me at the station in the morning, and we'll take the trucks by?" And so just home for a few hours, and he made sure it was organized. And the next morning he was there bright and early, making sure the trucks were washed, and had drivers for all of them. And we did this parade for the little 4-year-old. And that's who he was. He always wanted to help people. He worked on a dairy farm from when he was 12 years old, and he would help others, his friends who who would have farms. They knew 2, 3 in the morning when the cows were out, you called Peyton, and he was there to get the cows back in and do whatever was needed to be done. So it didn't matter if it was somebody needed a ride, they needed their snow plowed, whatever. Peyton was the one. Everybody in town knew you could call Peyton and he would help you in any way that you could.
It is a unique area. We are very privileged to live where we do. In a small town in northern New York that literally has one intersection. And our school system has got pre-K through 12 in one building. We all start our day at the same time and we all leave at the same time. We're very, very privileged for that. I'll give you an idea, when you asked about how others saw him. We were, unfortunately, when we had to go to the hospital, we would get bits and pieces of information. And at the end of that journey, when we were bringing him home, we pulled out of the hospital and we ended up in a state that was in Pennsylvania, matter of fact. And we ended up in Sayre, Pennsylvania. So we're out of our area. And we are on our way home, and as we left that hospital that day, we were greeted by young and old parents and grandparents that stood on the corners of those blocks with signs thanking him. And we met, and no exaggeration, it's videotaped from one news crew to another, from Pennsylvania until we got to our house. Every overpass on 81 was covered. The fields, and I'll never get that image out of my head, the fields that the farmers had that would butt up against Interstate 81 would sit on their tractors and hold flags. And so many of them didn't know our son. But those who did, it had spread so far and so wide that the understanding about what the type of person he was in his short life spread. And not one overpass was missed, not one block to get onto it from the hospital was missed. When we exited and got to the city of Watertown, which is the city where Peyton was hired, they had shut down the main strips because the parade of vehicles of first responders was so huge. And I can still see all of those amazing people as they held signs, or the major intersection of the city, and it was dead silent. And people stopped and weren't even walking. They just stopped. And as we passed his city fire department, the City of Watertown Fire Department, of course, the firefighters were outside and beautifully tributed. But there was a grandfather and a little boy, and the little boy had his little helmet on and his outfit, his fireman outfit, and all I could think of. And I remember tapping David because I have a photo of Peyton at that age, dressed like that, sitting in the City of Watertown Fire Department's fire truck when he was 5. And ironically, when months later, we've been working on a foundation for Peyton, since he is no longer to spread his legacy, we'll spread his good deeds for him. And as I'm speaking with a very wonderful woman, she runs a jewelry shop, a local one. She didn't know me personally, I didn't know her, And I remember looking up, and she's like, "You're working on the foundation?" I said, "Yes." I said, "You know, we've been so blessed by so many people, and one day I'm going to meet that little boy that I never forgot." And she looked me straight at the eye, straight in my eyes, and was crying as she said, "His name is Evan, and he's my grandson. Whenever you're ready, you let me know." You see, our community still to this day, when you drive through, there are yellow hearts all over, in windows, not only in businesses, and our school. While we were in the hospital, the art teacher who had known him since he was 5 knew his favorite color was always yellow and cut hearts in yellow, and the school put them on tables outside the building because of COVID and people really couldn't go in, so that our community could come and stop and pick them up. They are all over, aren't they?
They're still up.
They're still
the
up.
Town offices and the school and private residents and people's cars. The support has been amazing, but that's who Peyton was. Everybody knew him and everybody loved him because he loved everybody, and he was so full of forgiveness, and just all he did is want to help. And I'll tell a quick story. Just over 4 years ago, on a family vacation for Parker's 21st birthday,
A year and a half before he died.
we found ourselves right here in Gettysburg. And one day we decided we were going to drive to the St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Shrine in Emmitsburg.
Which we didn't know about until we were at the hotel.
And on our way, we passed the sign for the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial. And Peyton from the back seat, "Hey, Dad, can we stop there?" And I just kind of ignored him for a minute. And he says, "Dad, I really feel compelled to stop there. Can we stop there?" So we stopped there. And of course he takes his hat off, and we get in, and we have a photo of him in front of the memorial. And he wanted to pay his respects to all those who gave their lives. And here we are, just over 4 years later.
It was a year and a half before he passed. And we knew nothing of Mother Seton Shrine or of where, a national memorial was located. And they were home from college. But it was the most organic development of a trip that we've ever had, because we didn't know, and he just happened to see the brochure, the hotels have, and he brought it up, and we, were like, "Oh, yeah, we have a little downtime, and it just unfolded. And when he finally said, "Dad, I feel compelled," Dave just looked and goes, then we have to do it. Just one of those things that, I think most parents, there's a difference in a child's voice that wants something or needs something. And at that moment, we realized it was a need, but we didn't understand it, but we just needed to do it.
When you asked who Peyton was and what the community was, number one, just the general community has been overwhelming, but the Lafargeville Volunteer Fire Department, the Shaker Road Fire Department, Watertown City, they all came together. Again, Peyton was spiritual. A few months after he passed, our local church closed. And
He was an altar server.
we didn't know what to do with the Stations of the Cross inside the church. We didn't want them to be destroyed. And the local diocese, they said, we don't have need for them. So I called Siena College and said, do you want them? And of course, Father Larry Anderson says, "Oh, we would love them." So we brought them down to Siena, and they didn't know what they were going to do with them. They thought they'd put them up in a chapel or something. And like 7 months later, we get a call, and Father Larry said, "I was walking through an old trail when it hit me."
Trail, a service trail.
It was near the shrine. They have a shrine at Siena, and Peyton spent a lot of time at the shrine, and he would help keep the candles, change the old for the new. And Peyton spent a lot of time and was well known to be at the shrine. So right near the shrine is an old ROTC training trail. And Father Larry said, I was walking and I said, this is where the Stations of the Cross need to be. So he contacted their maintenance department, buildings and grounds, and asked if it was possible, and they built special boxes, cedar boxes, copper roofs, plexiglass, made sure that they were watertight, and they put the Stations of Cross on the path, and they've named it Peyton's Path. And they have it as a tribute to Peyton, because Peyton made such an impact there at Siena in the 3.5 years he was there. It's hard to sum up Peyton. He meant so much to so many, certainly to our family.
Peyton, our loss, I think, is equal to the loss of the communities that he could have served.
Here's to you, with that smile on your face. Here's to you, and what I want to raise to this moment we share.